All right. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing great. I hope everyone's doing amazing because I know I am. My name is Chad. I'm a motion designer and I'm learning to draw every day just to prove to people that it's not really that bad. Okay, first of all, haircut. Let's get it. Kept the stash, trimmed it a little bit. We're feeling good. We're feeling great. Man, all right, let's talk about for a couple of minutes, literally a couple of minutes, about like what's been happening in the past few days, and then we can watch the video and whatnot. Um, I feel like I have messed up in a few aspects, what I did was I took a few days off. I wouldn't call them the really off because I had a few meetings, but I took a few days to myself. I was not like putting actual work into whatever I was working on because I needed that time or that energy to just like reflect. And so what I've been doing is just reflecting and doing some retrospecting, and I think I've gotten somewhere. And I'm very happy. I'm very happy that I did, because I at least know that I didn't waste that time. And I think this works very well. And I haven't done this before. Most of the time when I get like this and things get overwhelming and I feel bad about some stuff that I've done in the past, I would just crash. I will give myself time to crash, but not actually come out from it with anything constructive or with anything or not trying to change anything really. I'm just like give myself time to do some boohoo but not change anything. And doing some boohoo is fine, but you need to really think and look at where you messed up so you can change it. Actually, hopefully the quote is still there. There's a I have an extension on my Chrome. No, it's not Chrome. It's Edge browser, and it's called Momentum, I think. And it gives like these quotes every day. And today's quote is amazing. It says, "Awareness is the greatest agent for change," and that's absolutely true. And it feels like it sums up what I've done. What I've been doing in the past few days. I was trying to be aware, and I was trying to get where I messed up. Where did I mess up? And I feel like I figured it out. I feel even if I didn't set the things that would fix the problems correctly, the fact that I identified the problems is more than enough for me. Because so here's the process that went into it. I thought about the problems, right? What happened? Okay, there's 3 steps. Like the first step is what happened. What really went wrong? Okay, this and this went wrong. So the second step is how did I deal with them, or what are some bad ways that I've dealt with it. And so I would grab this problem that happened. Okay, I dealt with it this way, which is incorrect, right? If it was correct, then I wouldn't be thinking about it, because that's great. I'm feeling bad, so I must have dealt with something incorrectly. And so I was trying to figure out the problem, which is like the biggest thing, and then go in a little bit deeper. And so how did I deal with it? I know that I dealt with it in a certain bad way. Like, what exactly is this way? And so I figured this bad way that I dealt with, this bad way, and this bad way. Now the next step, and the third and the last step, is how can I fix it? I did this certain thing the bad way. Now let's try to look for a change, something I would change that would make me deal with it better next time. And so it went that way, and I think it went great. And so even if you go through the first step and the second step, and you're sure about these and you're correct about these, that's already like about 60 to 70% of the journey. You know, the fixing thing, you may, you know, put a plan or you know, sort of like tell yourself that you're going to fix it this next time through a certain, like, for example, technique or doing something, but it may not end up being the right decision or the right thing to do to fix it. So that's, now you've identified another bad way to deal with it, and so you can just get that out of the way, and you try another thing and see if it works or not. But that is all, that is only built on identifying the problem, which is very, very, very crucial. So I feel like I've done the first 2 steps correctly. Now the third step is just me going to try to, you know, different techniques. And you know, I'm speaking vaguely here, but my problems mainly were with dealing with people. All right, how to deal with people and how can I do it better next time. And that's what I've been trying to, and that's what I've been thinking about for the last couple of days. Also, you know, thinking about my faith, because honestly, I've been feeling that there a little bit of a decrease, not a little bit actually, a lot of decrease. So, you know, faith is very important, and so I'm tackling that as well. So yeah, it's a whole thing, and I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm going this route. Like I said, for the past, I don't know, I would just let myself crash without, you know, coming with anything constructive. But now I feel like it's me taking a step back. I would feel like it does at a certain point feel like, oh, I'm missing out because I'm not going out and I'm not talking to people. And, you know, and talking to people can be great. Don't get me wrong. But for me personally, it's better for me to just like take a step back and deal with it on my own, rather than reach out to a person. And I mean, I may be wrong here, but here's the reason why. I go talk to a person and I try to explain the problem. I never end up explaining it correctly 100%. And even if I was like the most eloquent person, I would explain it perfectly. The fact that the person in front of me is not me is enough to give me to give him the you know, the ability to give me something or advice that is wrong. All right, because they did not go exactly through what I went through. They don't really feel it. They're not me. We don't have the same experiences. And so they give me, if what I'm looking for, you know, from talking to a person is advice, then it's not going to be great. The only person that I'm gonna take advice from is me, and the only way, because I can give myself advice that is bad, and so I would only hear advice from myself. And not only that, but I would only hear it from myself only when I actually thought through the problems, right? So it's a very, very you know, hard or tough critique, you know, to be taken. You know, I wouldn't even trust advice from myself. And I should be looking at the camera, by the way. This is one of the techniques that I'm trying to implement. Looking at the camera, looking at people in the eyes. So, and this is one of the things that I'm trying to implement, is just I'm not going to listen to anybody anymore, because I've done that my whole life, and it did not serve me well. And so the only person that I'm going to listen to is myself, and not in every condition. Absolutely not be emotional when trying to listen to myself, because if I'm emotional, and a lot of things do get me emotional. If I'm emotional, I'm definitely going to make the wrong call, right? So not taking decisions when I'm emotional, just like when I'm like low key, when I'm chill, when I'm let's say done with the day, I'll be like comfortable. Maybe I'll take a decision or two, right? Otherwise, I am not going to take advice from myself either. Anyways, this was amazing. I feel like I need to talk about it because this was great. This is the first time me doing it, and I feel like it's a good step. It's a step towards the right direction. and hopefully it pays off really well. I know it's going to pay off. Let's see the extent. All right. Now the only thing we need to do is to watch the Proko. Proko head. So head construction, step-by-step portrait construction. This is 18 minutes.
These steps are incredibly important.
All right. First of all, you know what? This is what I'm gonna do. I'm going to since this is 18 minutes. Actually, is there a shorter one? Cynics has done one. What the hell? This is 15 minutes. This is me streaming. I was suggested my own video, which is nice. I like that. Ow. Alright, sure. Let's do the 18 minutes one.
Because this is These steps are incredibly important because this is the gesture stage of your head drawing. And if you're like me and have a tendency to want to get into those beautiful details of the eyes and the nose and have found that you've lost some of that positioning and emotive expression of the head, neck, and shoulders, these 4 steps cover the sizing of your skull, the leaning and tilting of the head's relationship to the context of the neck and shoulder, the position and placement of the jaw, rotation of the head, and then the basic perspective. Are you under or over the head? Okay, so first step, basic.
This is really nice, by the way. You know what we can do? We can split the video into 2. So we're gonna stop at minute 8 or 9.
Sphere. Remember, this is not what the human skull looks like, so part of the drawing process is going to be shaving, whittling this down, customizing it, so it only needs to be proportion and shape right now. Now, if I look at her head, right, the one thing I always want to ask myself is, even if my impulse may be to make it completely vertical, it really never is.
That's very true. And it's very apparent in this one, right here. I was trying to do the comparison between my drawing and the reference, and you see how the eyes are a bit tilted here. There's a tilt, there's an angle. However, in my drawing, the mouth is completely vertical. The eyes are sort of vertical as well. And so when I place this here, you can see that this eye is low, whereas I drew it very high, and the mouth absolutely is hideous as well.
All right, so if it helps, you can, and you're uncomfortable or are new to seeing some of these two-dimensional leans and how they manifest in the head, neck, and shoulder, sometimes it's helpful to draw over a reference and include that really straight two-dimensional line so that you have a bit of an ability to gauge. So my guess here is that the head is leaning this way a bit. What is the neck doing? Well, it's certainly not vertical either, so I think it's going this way. And then shoulders do look a bit more horizontal. I'm kind of a diagonal enthusiast, so even if I see something that might be horizontal, I'm usually going to exaggerate it a bit. One thing that you can do, this would be something that I would think more about in just a study of gesture, is starting to catalog and maybe even writing down one word for the emotion that you think you see in an image. That way you start to get a sensitivity to the way that the body might be projecting those nods, and you become kind of a connoisseur of the way that the body and its arrangement communicates. So that's step 1. This is step 2. Step 3 is the inclusion of the jaw. This is 3/4. So let's just pull our shape line down. So I'm just feeling that line down off the sphere, and then noticing on my model that that straight for the chin is closer to the right. I'm going to try to keep that 2/3, 1/3, and then let's bring a line down from the other side of the sphere and bring it right to that corner. Sometimes what we can see in female skulls is that the jaw can be a little bit more narrow. The transition between the remus and mandible, or the width of the jaw, can be a little more slight. If that's stuff you'd like to include here to kind of customize a secondary shape, you can absolutely do that as well. Next, this isn't something that I put too much in terms of the steps, but I do always like to get a fuller shape for the neck. So here I'm just going to add a C-curve and an S-curve, part of that transition that I talked about earlier. So anytime the head is looking up or straight, I think that the traps are having to hold the head in that position. So that would be represented by this line. That's a C-curve. And then the skin and the stretch of the throat for the front of the neck would be longer and more of a passive curve. The last thing, if you're working with your rib cages, is always going to be off angle. So higher in the back, lower in the front. So again, that's just another diagonal, but in space. And then this would be the way you could lead in terms of this lesson to your figure constructions and anatomy, is then the rib cage would build down there. Next is my center line. So here comes the center. Feeling that over, trying to match that to where I would see it with her. And then one thing that you could keep an eye on in this is, where does that cut? And then one thing that you could keep an eye on in this is, where does that cut the chin? Right, and notice that if you feel like you didn't really get that 3/4 or that turn, maybe your center cut the chin too much in the center, right? In this, it should be foreshortened. So we should have a little less on the side that's turning away, a little more on this side. My cross, so my alignment for the brow might be here. And then where's my ear? So this isn't anything to
Isn't that a bit high?
do with the proportioning yet of the ear. I'm just doing my best to sight it. It looks like it's over here somewhere, but I would definitely say it's slightly lower than the brow. What does that mean? That means we get a really tame or really narrow ellipse drawn all the way through that. So that would be my ellipse. That's my last step. And then triple check would be, this isn't the center. The major axes would be the center. So if I need a double check on that placement from my perspective, that should be halfway on the ball. Those are your first 4. In this course, you're going to be learning a step-by-step approach that will take you through how to understand the proportions of the face, develop primary structures for your skull and jaw, and then address the features as sculptures that will be set on top of those primary forms. So let's look at 3/4. So how would I set up the same? Here's the build, straight, tilt. Here's my chin. Relate that back to the large sphere of the head. Neck, offset axes in space, or tilt for that ellipse of the neck, high to low. So I use a rough system of proportions. I'm not great with math, so about halves and thirds is roughly what I'm capable with, and maybe not even that most days. Here's my center line. Here's my brow line. Halfway is the nose. Halfway is the socket. Halfway is the keystone. And
halfway?
Here's my center line. Here's my brow line.
Okay.
Halfway is the nose.
Halfway between the brow line and the chin? Is that what it is? Okay, I see you. I see you.
Halfway is the socket. Halfway is the keystone and eye. Thirds for the mouth. I could see, again, a prominence. I'm not drawing these in terms of, the early stage, but it's what I'm looking at, and it's why my lines are oriented the way they are. I think it's worth mentioning because there's always that disconnect in drawing. I want to be drawing the thing that I see, but I'm always making a drawing. You're never making the thing you see. So I think it's important at certain points that I make the connection as clear as I can for you. What am I seeing and how am I interpreting it? So that's kind of where I'm orienting this. Base of the nose, remember, was the area where that nose was closest or most flush. When I'm looking for this line, which would be my bottom of the socket, remember how interested or amazing I think that cheekbone structure is? Well, that's I can start to see that here. That cheekbone is also, in my opinion, the key to understanding age. Right? Aging, for me, is really just the structural fat of the face. Your face, there's a lot of fat on it that doesn't come as a result of you eating too much or too little. Right? When we have fat fall, it starts to put stress and expose those areas of bone, which instantly kind of produces that look or feeling of age. And when we're youthful and young, like think of babies, we smuggle giant apples in our cheeks. There's no presence of bone there. And then for the thirds, I could double check here. I'm mostly looking for that kind of the parting of the lips. So that would be my line there. And then maybe we could say, well, his chin moved down a little bit. That would be my line there. I'm mostly looking for that kind of the parting of the lips. So that would be my line there. And then maybe we could say, well, his chin moved down a little bit. That'd be something to keep in mind for later. Looking for that kind of the parting of the lips. So that would be my line there. And then maybe we could say, well, his chin moved down a little bit. That'd be something to keep in mind for later, right, where I'm starting to think a little bit more concretely about molding this to match his face a bit more. This would be the roadmap so far. Each step does something very concrete and very objective so that you can make assessments about your work or change it. We just did step 5, which was proportions. So that step just allows me to focus on that competency alone. And now what I would use that to do is start to transition into understanding the side plane of the head. So we've done all the big setup. Step 5 really is the last of that. What I mentioned earlier was that one proportional marker that's important but is often not included in 5 is the hairline. And it's because there's too much play there. Some people have one, some people don't. Sometimes the hair lines up with where I'm looking for on the skull, and sometimes it doesn't. But if you can just find that area, general area, what I'm really looking for here would be the hairline represents a moment in the skull where we would have the front of the head become the top of the head. That's the inherent value of this step for me. So, when I'm looking at hairline, it could be here, could be lower, could be higher. There's a lot of play. But what it means is that this is when the forehead stops and then the top of head begins. The reason that's crucial or important for our next step, which is understanding a side plane, or we could say our first form cut, is that if you take this line and throw it all the way back, so just relate that to the back of your large sphere, this is a consistent change of surface and texture in your skull. Above this, your skull is rounded and very kind of dome-like. And then as soon as you hit that line, it becomes sheer and concave. What I'm looking to cut out here is what's called the temporal fossa, which is this big cutout on the side of your head where one of the two muscles of mastication sits. So it's one of the two muscles used to eat. If you call 150 pounds per square inch eating, you weaklings. So in this step, what we would look for is 4 points. Hairline, base of nose, which you have. That establishes the height of your temporal fossa. The other two would be the width. So and the other 2 points would be temple and then back of skull. So where's the temple? Oh, it's like right there. So I'll just cite that. It looks like it's right here. And then back of skull could just be the back of my shape. Once I find these 4 points, it's kind of what I was discussing earlier. Now I take this out. This becomes extruded. So for me, drawing...
It's interesting that he's doing it the other way around,
is not about the organization of space as much as it's about sculpting. What this step means to me is that I started with this very simple geometry, which we discussed, the pros and the cons of it. And then now it's time to start to plane it in order to make it more approximating or more approximate to my reference. So this step is about shaving this. It's taking away. And that's very much what the rest of this approach will look to create is cuts and additions. So we can get rid of that now, or you can throw it away. But what I'm left with here is a sheer plane that's much more like what the skull would be. From this I get my ear, my cheekbone, which could be any way that you want to design it, and my jaw. So here, once I have my plane, I cut it into quarters. So that's 4. Not that this is always the case, but I find that pretty consistently the ear lives in this back quarter. And then, I'll start by making the ear a simple C, but most ears are 5 planes. And that what I try to do when I look at different people is start with that C and then look at the difference in length. So it's always, like I've been saying, what's universal or what's unifying about a face or a part, and then how can I use that knowledge to study and develop an appreciation of variety. So the variety would be trimming and extending and distorting those lengths. So this gets my setup. The bottom of the ear covers what would be called the temporal mandibular joint and the auditory meatus. That looks like a little 8 there. That's where your jaw begins. So now, instead of having, again, let's go back to our big skull setup. Instead of having a big bulbous balloon or basketball head with this rounded jaw, I don't want that either. This is just a setup to now get more custom. Now that becomes almost like a framework or training wheels for me to be more decisive. What is the angle of this person's remus, mandible? Is it more angular and straight? Is it smoother and less of a break? If this is just a kind of your average, you could invent it and nudge it in any direction. So this would become now my 2 lines for the jaw. And then as far as the cheek, right? So I've done the ear and the jaw. There's any number of gradations for this. The Andrew Loomis solution would be, let's take the top of the ear and swing it down on a big C curve to land at the corner of the chin. It's a bizarre solution. It's fascinating because it's nowhere near where the cheek is, but what it gives you is a great rhythm that establishes a side plane. So get and swing it down on a big C ear in the jaw. There's any number of gradations for this. The Andrew Loomis solution would be, let's take the top of the ear and swing it down on a big C curve to land at the corner of the chin. It's a bizarre solution. It's fascinating because it's nowhere near where the cheek is, but what it gives you is a great rhythm that establishes a side plane. So now what we've done is we've taken this weird bulbous jaw shape and we've made another cut, and now we could take that off. It's more akin to something that would come out of the Riley school, and that's how Loomis described rhythm more in his book, right? Was a relationship between parts. His discussion of rhythm is kind of related to contour and feature, and there's 3 types of rhythms and they relate different parts of the body. So it makes sense in that context. If you touch right here and then open your mouth, what you'll feel is this little ball moving forward. So the opening of your mouth is it's not just a hinge. One movie that sticks with me is The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. The mummies are the scary creatures, and their mouths just kind of drop straight down. That's not what ours does. Ours swings forward and then back, and then drops straight down. That's not what ours does. Ours swings forward and then back. And that's why it would be great to have like a Proko skull or another little skull that you could reference. And so when you're looking at this area, there's like a little wobble. So you can make the glasses and then do like a little wave in it, so that you think when this opens, it's going to shift and drop in there. Right? And then maybe you could do like a little temple shape, a little S curve that would build into your brow. Maybe you also want to turn the corner and try to show the front of the lens on the glasses. My teacher, John Watkiss, had a kind of a cool summary somewhere between Andrew Loomis and what I did that's more expressive of the bone, where he found plotted marks to develop rhythm in there. You can have any solution. It should be creative and open to your interpretation of how you want to make these things start to look and read. But that would be kind of step 6. Step 7, I start to develop the sockets, right? And I'll show you again different ways that you could think of this. Some people like to do this big cut that looks like Cyclops from the X-Men. The value of this is that you can start to, make a connection to the idea that your sockets as a whole have a different lean. Forehead comes out, sockets go back. But nobody's sockets look like this. Instead, mostly what I see people draw, sometimes I used to do this at the beginning of classes, just ask people, draw a skull from imagination. Let's see how well you know what the skull is. Every person drew the Terminator skull or the Punisher logo, the most pissed off skulls on the planet, right? So that would be a more organic way to see the cutback of the sockets. This is a cool solution because if you pull that up, you would get for free the plane changes of the forehead. That goes straight. This leans consistent with that drop. And so you could hopefully quickly see how we're starting to develop some space or some architecture. But here's how that nose would start to form. This would be a summary of all of the cartilage of the nose and the nasal aperture. Sometimes I'll do something like this, even if I want to study the skull, and then I'll come back in and start to investigate. Oh, that's actually like a useful grid to think about what the nasal aperture might look like from this view. I used to collect magazines on rhinoplasty when I was in college. It was really popular with the ladies with that. But that way you could kind of see the visual of plastic surgery, kind of what the structure of the nose looks like in there, and cheekbone on this side. And then we'll start to add our denture sphere, step 10. And that's really the kind of the big let's say, secondary development of masses and perspectives in terms of the features? What is the denture sphere in terms of the orientation of mass? What do the teeth contribute to the face before I put lips on? That way my lips don't look like this. I'm forced to understand them as on top of and participating with the surface. And then chin. And that's getting us near kind of an average construction, an idealized perspective skull. And then once done here, what I like to look at last would be features, or let's say specifically fat. So the fats of the face, the subcutaneous pockets and deposits of fat. And so around your eye, you have 5, right? Or maybe even some of the facial anatomy. Like instead of discussing the eye, what's interesting to me is the canthal ligament. How often have we heard this, right? Well, what's interesting about the eye? Well, the eye isn't interesting because there's an iris and a pupil, even though this is what I always see people draw. I always see most beginning drawing students do this, and then it's always weepy, a little nicely modeled tear. What's more interesting to me is the angle. So what you'll notice is everybody's eye is at a different tilt, and this is your canthal ligament. This is what straps the eye in place. We often use this to assign aesthetic beauty to a face and to an eye. Like you could probably remember like a pinup, exaggerated kind of pinup character or cartoon character. How there's always, for a beautiful character, this uplift area to the ligament or the lash or the eye. That's considered quote unquote beautiful. This would be neutral. This would be less so, unfortunately for me. And part of what creates this is fat. Women have more roof fat, which stands for retrobillar forest fat. Why is that considered beautiful? Maybe because it hides all the hard surface of the skull. I don't know, but it seems to be consistently accentuated with makeup and the uplift of that lash. So this is the roadmap, and there's lots to digest and put together. But what I'm looking to give you or deliver some perspective blueprint that you could use to push out whatever invented or imagined or observed figure that you would like, and have some structure to understand and orient light and shadow. This is the roadmap for the idealized average I'm looking to give you. This course will help with any number of things. It could be invention, building more of a backbone and a scaffolding to the way that you think about your light and shadow, how plane and surface informs your use of value and edge. It also might help with the creation of characters. You could take this and distort it and create any number of variations of heads or characters by pushing and pulling these shapes. Check it out. It's at proko.com/Hampton. I'll see you there.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, let's get over here and let's try to do a head. And I'm thinking, grabbing this yesterday, I was like, yeah, this is easy. No, it was not. Okay, ooh, this is very interesting. Straight out of a cartoon. And this is our orb, circle, whatever you want to call it. And this is almost a side plane, but not quite. So let's see here. We got this one here, and the angle is this way. I know the angle is this way. this right here. And we're doing this way as well. I've done this. And her face is sort of going straight. Like straight here. Right? And that's almost as straight, so we're doing this. There's a, you know, the link here is very wide. Very interestingly wide. I think I should move that back a bit. And I'm talking about this line. So I think I should move it back a little bit. Man, this is very interesting. Such an interesting build. I think still we need to move that back. Here's what we need to do. We need to change the size of this circle. This is, like we said, this is almost a circle here. Almost a circle, meaning that, and it's almost a circle, and we're still going past. We're still going past. Right? Is that good? I think that finally looks okay. There's a line, and this is our ear. There you go. Okay. Now man. I want to do like a rhythm type of thing on here, but I don't know what to pick. Now the nose is here. And the mouth is here. I need to look for rhythms. Where are the rhythms? You know, I see a bit of a cheek here, which is interrupted right here. The nose is very prominent. And so the nose is almost popping out here. And I wouldn't mind that this is exaggerated, because it is a ridiculously shaped nose. Like nothing wrong with it, it's just that very unusual. You know, you can see the bump here, and we can actually also get the angle at which this is going to do this, right? And this is obviously the teeth. Now I have a problem with teeth. Now, is there anything that we messed up here? Probably there is. The direction of the nose feels okay. The direction of the eyes is almost straight. So that's good. Even the eyebrows, they're okay. Got the eyebrows there, and since it's going up, then it's up. If it's up, that is up. My name Korai Black, but when you see me, I'm white. Alright, there's a third here. Let me actually try to do this by myself this time. This is the last time I'm gonna do it. My name Korai Black, but when you see me, I'm white. Good lord, man. I need to give her some hair ASAP because this does not look like a woman. My name Korai Black, but when you see me, I'm white. I forgot to do the... Good lord. Oh, beautiful, luscious hair. I just realized. go. Fine. That was horrible. And to whoever this model is, I am sorry. I apologize. Alright, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for being here. And I really appreciate every single one of you. And peace out.